Sorry, you're jumping around my screen. Hi, I'm Councillor Craft. We've got Councillor Burt who's struggling with connection problems. And I think we are agreed to start the recording. Is that correct, officer? So we've no apologies, apart from Councillor Burt who's struggling to get in. And we're in. Great.
I've just got in. I got
Excellent.
This last minute message from Alala, and that worked.
Thank you, Olala. Excellent. Okay, so we've no apologies for absence, and I don't think, have we any declarations of interest or transparency statements? No. So in that case, we will move on to item 3, and I think, is it yourself, Ben, or who have we got? Is it yourself from the fire, Ben?
Yeah,
it's going to give us an update.
Will be, yeah.
Okay.
I'll just give you an update.
Okay, we'll pass over to yourself. Thank you.
Yeah. Hang on, I'll just get you my screen again. You've disappeared. IT's at its best. Yeah, apologies. It was meant to be Mike Collier, but he's got a couple of disciplinaries that he's dealing with. So he phoned me 5 minutes ago to say, can you do the scrutiny report? So just for what's going on in Scots Fire and Rescue this quarter in our area. So for quarter 3, quarter 4, we've had generally 123 home fire safety visits have been done. We've had 40 incidents in total that are non-fire emergencies, 17 road traffic collisions. Year to date, we've had 7 in our area. Gladly, we've had no fatalities in our area. A couple of non-fatal RTCs in our area over this quarter. It's actually looking not too bad for the rest of it. I'm just trying to, my mouse is playing up. It's just back from the holidays. This is what happens on a Monday when you get told, can you do a meeting 10 minutes before? And UFAS signals are, we've had 20 UFAS, which is unwanted fire alarm signals this quarter. And looking at the boss's report, UFAS has gone up a wee bit, but it's more businesses than any private houses for unwanted fires. And things are looking actually quite good. With regards to what we're doing in the service at the moment, we're going through a period of change, as you may well know. So we're having local meetings, we're having coffee with the crews in stations in the areas so that the members of the public can come in and speak to the fire crews and then have a say on what they want the service to look like or how they would like the service to look like in the future, because we are doing a lot of work in Scotland. You would have maybe seen it in the news with SSRP, and it's the plan for what they want to do with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service to modernise, and move forward as we are, because we know we have to change. So that's what's going on. Nothing else. Just going down the report. I've got the report here. Figures are low, but the statistical analysis is challenging. The low figures can also make it inappropriate to provide detailed data analysis. So until we get all the figures in, because it's only a quarter, we'll get more details at the end of it. We did have one accidental dwelling fire, but we've worked closely with partner agencies and communities just to try and sort that out and see what they are. We work well with the home safety teams and the community action teams and the local partner agencies. But as I say, everything else is pretty well down. In the areas, what we have going on, here we go. Yeah, they're all good. Nothing major jumps out on us. But on the good side of things, availability for stations, Ackleby's gone up. They're back to getting crews. So they were 49% available in that quarter. Altbay are 92%. Otherpool's first appliance is 98% and their second appliance is 79% availability. We've got a total of 14 male staff in Otherpool and 4 female staff, so a total of 18, which is good. Yeah, we're looking good. We've got a new appliance at Lochcarron, which is a fully fitted medium weight rescue appliance, and Altbay has now got a full size firefighting appliance as well. So we have 2 new appliances. Gairloch has been delivered new thermal image equipment, so they've got a new thermal image camera, and Otherpool will be getting a further full-sized appliance in the future. We've got an interim appliance coming until we get the new full-size appliance for our pools, so that will have eventually 2 full-size appliances. So on that is what we've got from the Fire and Rescue Service at the moment, but I'm open for questions.
Okay, any questions, members? Okay, so I have.
Okay, yeah, on you go.
So, well, questions and comments. First of all, good to see the staffing up.
Yeah, staffing is up, yes.
Yeah, so I did put the word out to all the community councils that they would maybe want to engage with yourselves and just get information. I don't know if you've had any
I haven't had anything really.
We can give it another push,
no.
if not.
I would give it another push, Liz, just to get some more in. We've got a new I've got a new on-call support watch commander working in this area as well. So John Lavelle works out of Ullapool, and he's been here for years. He knows everybody in Lochinver area and Ullapool area and Altby area. So yeah, just see if you can chase him up again. We'll get it back out just so we can get more conversations going and try to help with recruitment in certain areas, you know.
Yeah, Councillor Campbell.
Does the fire board do first responding?
All the firefighters in the area are trained in first aid and immediate care and trauma. All the appliances have defibrillators on them. So it has been known that, you know, if our colleagues of Scottish Ambulance are, you know, aren't available, it has been known that they have called an appliance out to assist for a cardiac arrest because they know that we have defibrillators. We don't do first responding as in the terms of first responding. They won't turn us out to say, right, you are going to do this, you know, straight away. They'll always fall back on the SAS first off, you know, but we do have defibs. We are all trained in it. It was more of the first responding thing was more of how can I say it? It was back about 10 years ago when they had a pay deal. It was part of the agreement, but it got turned back. So, but as I say, we are all trained. And if we get responded to first for a need of a defibrillator, we will go. So that's kind of how we work.
Yeah, because at Strathpeffer, one of your firemen was a shinty player, and he saved the life of the referee.
Yeah, well, Alan, that was it. Stevie McLachlan, if you don't know, Stevie McLachlan was a referee, but he's a watch commander in the training division, and he's refereed shinty, and he had a heart attack, and obviously the two firefighters that were playing shinty jumped into action because they were all trained, you know. So, and there was a defib there as well, which was a good thing. But on my car as well, I carry naloxone in my car. We've been given naloxone training, and I've got a stop the bleed kit as well. I won't get turned out to that, but if I'm driving past somebody and something happens, and I have kit there to help, you know, and then I'll make it an incident. But we're all trained in immediate care and response, you know.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Don't worry. Anyone else?
I'm just looking, Councillor Burt or Councillor Lowe, do you have any questions? So sorry, this is me again. I've got just another couple of very quick ones.
No, that's fine.
Well, actually two. One I'm just curious about. One is you talked about was it a call out when fire alarms go off accidentally? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, unwanted fire alarm signals. Just let me go through. Just they said that they went.
So my question is, I just wondered if that had changed because the new fire alarms distinguish between heat and smoke. Well, so years ago, when I worked in the Ross Memorial Hospital, we'd burn the toast, and you guys were there. So I'm just wondering, with the modern alarms, whether that's been reduced. That was my first question, and the other one was just very general. Do you have kind of preparations or work to do preventative work on potential wildfires? And the reason that I'm asking that is you're probably aware that we haven't received the funding this year for the Access Rangers, and a huge part of their job was going around getting people to put out fires and just advising on the risk of fire. So I just wondered if that would impact on your work at all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, first of all, the unwanted fire alarm signals are UFAS. We do like acronyms in the fire service. So we put a policy in a couple of years ago that we would stop turning out to some incidents that were UFAS all the time. We used to send, say if it was a hospital, for instance, we'd send 3 pumps and all the rest of it. But now what happens is for these buildings that have, can I say, they were the culprits of always getting unwanted fire alarm signals, burning their toast and fire alarm going off. They will say what will happen is they'll get a phone call and they'll say, can you confirm it is a fire or not a fire? And if it's not a fire, we don't send anybody, or we just send one appliance just to check it out. So the UFAS, not the alarm, when your question about the alarms is not really with the smoke and the heat alarms, it was more of hotels, like the ones in this area, like the hotels in Liverpool. The alarm goes off because the steam from the shower, because you open the shower door. So then advice is given with regards to, if you're having a shower, once you finish the shower, close the door quick so the steam doesn't set it off. It's things like that. That's kind of only the alarm system that will decide whether it's a UFAS or not. A smoke alarm and a heat alarm, they'll go off whatever sends them off, So that's not really a big issue with the alarms. But UFAS has gone down. We're a lot quieter in the area. If my mouse would move, I can tell you exactly how many UFAS. So we've gone down. UFAS has gone down. 2021 we had 15 in this area, 13, 21, last 22, 23 we had 21, and 23, 24 we've had 20 so far. But we've had a few hotels that have had issues with the alarm system, so if they had faults with the alarms, we get turned out. So then we have a couple of incidents we've had to go and kind of speak to hotels and get things sorted. So but we're not bad for UFAS in this area. With regards to wildfire, yes, it is getting to that season. Ullapool staff are all wildfire, will be getting wildfire trained. We will be getting an ATV at Ullapool, which will be based in Ullapool. Will be a 4x4 on a trailer, towing this wee ATV thing. So they'll all be level 3 wildfire trained. And other stations in the areas will get level 2 training. Certain stations, I don't know the names of them yet, will get the training on it. So Ullapool will have a dedicated bit of equipment sitting here for wildfire. With regards to members of the public information, we have leaflets we go about. We've visited all the caravan parks, put up leaflets to say about, doing camping fires and all the rest of it. There is an estate, and the name, I'm looking at the map here, I'm not really sure the Gaelic names of all these places, but there's an island just up from Ullapool, and they want us to go and do wildfire training with them. And actually it was Humberside, Northumberland Fire Service got in touch because they are big in wildfire training. They're quite big in the UK for wildfire training, so they got in touch with us. So between them and Big Neil McLennan and a few guys here, we're going to go over to the island and do wildfire training with them because they are very worried about it. We've had a few wildfire incidents before I went on holiday. There was a couple, but it was more quite small, but it was more just small acres of, not large bits of fire we've actually been very lucky so far. But we do go out and about and give information to the public and the councils to say about the wildfires, and as I say, the caravan parks and the camping sites get all informed about wildfires and lighting fires and all the rest of it. So we do what we can with the CAT teams and the local watch commanders that go out in the area to do it. But wildfire is an issue here. So.
Okay, so unfortunately, I was kicked off my broadband.
Yeah, you're frozen.
I came in at the end. I know. Bring on the Highland broadband to Strathpeffer. Kicked me off. So no, that was great. I got most of that, and I was able to make some notes.
Liz, I think you're frozen.
Yeah, she's frozen. Yeah.
Am I back?
Can you? No, you're still frozen.
You're speaking, but your mouth's not moving.
Okay, well, I'll just keep, for the sake of moving on, I'll try and sort that in a minute. But if you can hear me, I will just carry on. So if we've no more questions for Ben, can I just encourage all of us? I'll email the community councils again, because the fire service were quite keen just to reach out into the communities. They'll come along, have a wee chat with the community councils, and you know, maybe see if there's anyone interested in you know, in joining or getting involved. So we'll give that another wee push, Ben, for you.
Yeah, and just on that, you know, I mentioned the coffee with the crew thing because of the SSRP that's happening. We want to get the community to come in the station. So Liverpool's got a coffee with the crew on the 1st of June. 1st of June is a Saturday, and I'll let you know times. I can put a times in the chat. I'll let you know what time it is, so anyone in the Liverpool area can come in and fill in the paperwork and give their views on how they want to see the service moving forward in the area.
Well, I'll email you with the email of the local community council secretary, and then they'll get that out in the community for you.
I'll do that. Great. Perfect. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thanks very much, Ben.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think my whole computer screen has frozen. I've now lost the agenda. I think we're on to is it the fire service? Yeah. So an update from the SAS, Scottish Ambulance Service, is next. And is it yourself, Michael, that's going to give the presentation?
Good morning. No, it's actually Stephen who's going to be demonstrating his huge talents at screen sharing. I'm just thank you for the invite to allow me to come along and say hello to everyone.
Yourselves, get questions after. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Craft, and morning members. So I'll just share my screen here if it works for me. It should be in presentation mode now, is it? Yeah, okay, thanks. So first of all, sorry, for those that don't know me, I'm Stephen Gorman. I'm the interim head of ambulance services for the Highland area. And this morning I'm joined by my colleague, Michael Dixon, who's also our chief executive from the Edinburgh area. So thanks very much though for the invite, particularly to deliver this short presentation as well. It will be very high level, however at the end I'm happy to take questions and we can maybe focus more on each of your locations if you have any questions around that. The areas that I'm going to cover during this will be around the key performance measures that we use, why and how the Scottish Ambulance Service triage its calls, how we deal with time critical, non-time critical and urgent calls. I'll provide an overview of resources that we have available to us across Scotland, particularly for our remote and rural settings, and also key areas of local work that we undertake. So as many of you will most likely know, the Scottish Ambulance Service Special Health Board is part of NHS Scotland. We are a national mobile health service and we're delivering services locally and most often people's homes within every community in Scotland 24 hours a day and 365 days of the year. The Scottish Ambulance Service has a number of key measurements which were measured on nationally. However, I suppose acknowledging the geography of Scotland, we use information in each of the local health board areas or integrated joint board areas to see what improvements can be made locally. So this is a wee bit of a glance at the Highland, some of the Highland measurements that we have in information. So calls received last year, we received just short of 30,000 calls last year across the Highland area, of which almost 24,500 were 999 calls. And within those calls, what we found was that the top three, what we refer to as chief complaints, were in relation to people having falls, chest pain, and breathing problems. We also know that mental health also poses quite a significant challenge, However, sometimes that's very difficult to actually capture in a chief complaint because it can present in different medical ways as well. We do, however, have 2 response time targets that we predominantly focus on and try to maintain, and these are immediately life-threatening calls, which are purple categories and red categories. And later on, I'll explain what the categories actually mean in a bit more detail. But in relation to these immediate life-threatening calls for the purples, last year in Highland, we were at 8.25 minutes of a medium response, and that's against a 7-minute aim that's set for us by the government. And in relation to red category calls, we had a median of 9.11 minutes across the Highland area against an aim of 8 minutes. Now, response times are critical, and it is important that we get to patients quickly. However, there's also a focus as well on the level of care that we actually deliver and having good positive clinical outcomes for people. Because whilst we get there quickly, we want to make sure that there's a good outcome for the patient. So some of these areas that we look at as clinical outcomes are return of spontaneous circulation. So what that is where somebody goes into cardiac arrest and there's CPR undertaken. And what we're trying to do is to get a pulse back at the scene of an incident, and that in turn ensures that the patient stands the best chance of survival for being conveyed to hospital. Last year, we achieved this at 29.9% on CPR that was undertaken by ambulance crews, and that was against a measurement of 31%. Now, these may seem very low, however, it is at the moment, unfortunately, very highly unlikely that people will suffer cardiac arrest pre-hospital unless the chain of survival kicks in. And that chain of survival starts with the initiation of CPR by a member of the public or somebody who's witnessed somebody going to cardiac arrest. Touching on mental health as well, so we know mental health is absolutely a key area that we need to work on. So what we've found in Highland, though, when we respond to those suffering mental health crisis, 60% of the times we're able to care for these people in their own homes and avoid unnecessary hospital attendance. And the way we do that is through collaborative working with the NHS Highlands mental health services, but also the third sector such as Change Mental Health, who provide distress brief intervention support for people. And also people who have falls. So we know that a large proportion of people do have falls, particularly in our elderly age group. However, on 52% of occasions where we've attended, we've managed to care for these people in their own home, avoiding unnecessary hospital attendance. And also within those 52, 30% have accepted referrals for home assessment. And that's to look at things like mobile aids, maybe a review of medication, even a review of eyesight to try and prevent unnecessary falling. Also, we can do a referral into fire and rescue so that they can do a home fire safety check as well. So why we triage calls? Well, this may seem obvious, however, it's to use resources more effectively, but mainly is to save more lives by triaging and getting to the sickest of patients quickest and first. Also to provide the right response first time, and in turn that will provide then better patient and staff experience. So how we triage, this is a very important area, and it's to ensure, like I say, we can get the right resource first time to the person, but we also attend our sickest of patients quickest, which then ensures a chance of survival, particularly for those that are in cardiac arrest. So triaging 999 calls is broken down into 5 areas. We've got the top 2, which is purple and red calls. So these are immediately life-threatening calls. Now, a purple response would be for somebody who's at 10% more has a 10% more chance of going into cardiac arrest. And a red call is where a person is identified to having a likelihood of a cardiac arrest between 1 and 9.9%, or above 2% of requiring resuscitation interventions such as airway management. So this is all based on clinical-based outcomes. It was a review of our services over many years and trying to ensure that we send the right resource to these groups of patients. Our amber calls, these are for patients who are time critical, and time critical in a sense that they require immediate conveyance to definitive care. And people that you'd traditionally see requiring that level of response maybe specific chest pain situations or patients suffering stroke. And that's because definitive care can be delivered more in hospitals rather than in the home. So things like sort of cardiac services to remove clots from chest pain patients, or stroke patients requiring the CT scanners to confirm that they're having a stroke, and then further intervention to take place in a hospital setting. We then have yellow calls, and yellow calls are for patients where we have identified there is a need for emergency care, but there's a very low likelihood of them requiring life-saving intervention. And these could be patients that have suffered from trips or falls, but haven't sustained any serious injury. We also then have our green calls, which is following triage. There's been no immediate life-threatening or emergency identified. However, these people would most likely benefit from alternative care pathways, and they'd be supported remotely in the first instance by our clinical hub as well. So this screen may be a bit small depending on the size of your monitor, but how we deal with emergency calls. When the 999 call comes into the call handler, the first thing that they're looking to do is, by asking a series of questions, they're trying to establish if there's any immediate life-threatening or time-critical presentation. The minute they identify that, then they put the call over to the dispatch desk, where an ambulance is automatically dispatched, along with community first responders if they're available. When the ambulance arrives at the scene, the first thing they're trying to do is undertake any interventions and assessment. And the aim is to try and care for people in their own home and avoid unnecessary hospital attendance. And I think we appreciate that in the remote and rural settings, where we want to avoid having to take people over long distances to hospital settings and displacing them from their families and communities. Now, where we can provide treatment, we will discharge a patient at the scene. Alternatively, we may then refer them on for onward support and help, either from their local GP or some of the community schemes such as falls teams, COPD teams, and the hospital at home or end-of-life care. However, where absolutely necessary and where they need treatment at a hospital setting, then we will convey them to the hospital. So then we have our non-time critical emergency and urgent calls. So again, when they come in through the 999 system, our call handler here will ask a series of questions. And once they establish that there's no time critical or no life-threatening emergency, then the call will be referred into our new integrated clinical hub. And the clinical hubs are based within our ambulance control centres, and they are staffed by GPs, advanced practitioners, nurses and paramedics, and technicians, and supported with senior clinical managers as well. What they're looking to do is to see, is there a more suitable alternative care pathway for the person rather than an ambulance? It may be that they need to refer to the local pharmacy or to their GP or to one of the community teams. The integrated clinical hub clinicians, they'll also do treatment over the phone, and they also use video conferencing as well. And that's to try and support people remaining in their home with some self-care advice. However, where it's identified if there's an urgent need for an ambulance to attend on an emergency need, then they will arrange for the ambulance to be dispatched also. And within the integrated clinical hub team, within our ambulance control centres, the decision support that they provide for frontline staff is also exceptional as well. So that means that even our ambulance staff in remote and rural areas can have direct access to professionals to help support them further where it may be that the patient has some complex needs. So the resourcing that we have, it's quite large, and it obviously covers the whole of Scotland. So we have this through 3 ambulance control centres, one based in Inverness, Edinburgh and Glasgow. And most of our instances you'll be familiar with are responded to by the standard accident emergency ambulance. However, there will be some cases where we'll use the air ambulance service, and we've got 2 fixed wing aircraft based, one at Aberdeen and one in Glasgow. And we also have 4 rotary aircraft as well, Inverness and Glasgow, which are the government funded ones, but also the charity helicopters which work alongside us at Aberdeen and Perth. Also, to support responding to large and challenging incidents, we have the special operations teams, and they are based at Aberdeen, Newbridge and Johnston. Now, they can either be deployed by road, or we do have the ability in which to deploy them with air assets as well into remote rural communities. And we have seen that over the last probably few months, if not few years, where we've deployed these teams into the remote and rural setting. We also have access to volunteers within our communities who have trained up to become community first responders, and they'll provide care in the first vital few minutes before an ambulance arrives. We also have advanced practitioners, and they can provide assessment and treatment in person or by phone and video consultation, and as well as having an emergency medical retrieval service based at Aberdeen and Glasgow, who can be deployed to our most illest patients, particularly in the rural areas, bringing, in essence, the emergency department to the roadside. So what we're doing locally, there's some key areas that we've been working on over the last 12 months, particularly, where in September last year, we were able to establish a 24/7 mental health paramedic response unit in the Inverness area, following government investment. This resource responds to 999 calls, not just in Inverness, but out with also across the Highland area, working collaborative with the NHS Highland's Mental Health Assessment Unit at Newcraigs. And they also provide decision support and education to our paramedics and technicians across Highland. And this in turn supports patients more locally. Also within Highland, we've developed a team of 6 advanced practitioners in critical care. And again, they can be mobilised by road to help support the local ambulance with patients who are suffering critical care emergencies such as trauma or very serious medical conditions. They are also supported by the emergency medical retrieval service that can be deployed by air as well into these rural areas. Also within Highland, we've got a team of 7 advanced practitioners in urgent and primary care. And they're based in the Inverness and Fort William area. And again, whilst they'll respond to lower acuity emergency calls where we've identified the patient can be treated in their own home with some advanced care, that will be undertaken, but they also provide additional support to the rural ambulance crews as well. Working within a rural environment in remote areas, I mean, we absolutely understand is that, you know, it is different to work in that urban setting. And as such, the Scottish Government have established a national centre for remote and rural health and care, and the Scottish Ambulance Service are now very heavily involved in that. The goal of that centre then is to support the delivery and improved care for remote, rural and island communities, and it's about reducing health and wellbeing inequalities. There's 4 pillars which we believe as an ambulance service that will help shape our service delivery in remote and rural areas and also ensure that it remains sustainable. And these will be areas such as the leadership and best practice, they'll look at recruitment and retention, education and training, and also research and evaluation. I've included a link in the presentation as well, so when it's shared with members, there's reference points there for you to get further information as well. So we believe by being involved in this centre, then we're going to have a real, true, sustainable model in remote and rural healthcare going forward, and it will meet the needs of these communities as well. So I know that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, a very high level as well. But Chair, if there is time, I'm happy to take any questions. I'm also happy to put my email in the chat bar, and if there's anything specific that members want to meet up with me on an individual basis, then I'm happy to do that as well. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Can I just check that everyone can hear me?
Yes.
You can, that's fine. I don't know if you can see me, but as long as you can hear me, I've got my phone on as well. So we have a question. You're jumping. Councillor Burt has his hand up.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that very informative and comprehensive overview of the service, which is extremely interesting. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question, but I was wondering if you knew how many times, I'm talking about within, it could be within Highland or within our ward, you can answer either really, a defibrillator has been used in the last year, and if you know of that number, how many were discharged from hospital alive?
Thanks, Councillor Burt, for that. At the moment, I don't have that figure off the top of my head as to how many defibrillators have been used. I can certainly make inquiries to see if we can get it. It'll probably be down to a Highland area. I don't know if we'll be able to get any lower than that, to be honest. However, on your point around people being discharged from hospital following a cardiac arrest, so one of the measurements that we do have is around 30 days survival.
Yes.
And last year, what we found was that figure had risen up to 11.7% of patients who had CPR undertaken actually survived to 30 days and discharged from hospital and back home to their families. Now,
those are patients that had been defibrillated by your service and then taken to hospital.
Yeah, where there's been active CPR, and it may have been defibrillation by us, it may be a defibrillator by the community, where a member of the public's used that. But we are seeing that 30-day survival rate increasing, which is really positive. However, we recognise that there's a lot of work to be done. And a lot of work, what we talk about, is actually around the first few moments of a cardiac arrest occurring.
Yes,
and that's working with communities. I think what was alluded to about the shinty match in Strathpeffer there, very early intervention, CPR started, a defibrillator applied early, which buys time for the person. Yeah, absolutely. And just a very short statistic, what we say is for every minute that somebody's not breathing and nothing has been done, their chance of survival will reduce by 10%. So in 10 minutes, the likelihood of reversing that incident is very challenging. So it's a lot of stuff that we do work with the public, and we also work with Lucky to Be Here that some of you may have heard with, around education of CPR and the deployment of defibrillators as well. And we also do a lot of work with fire and rescue, and I know there is conversations ongoing just about maybe how we maybe formalise that more as we go forward as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. If you could provide those figures, it would be very, very interesting just to see. But I'm very grateful for your reply and for the whole presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Campbell? You're on mute.
Thank you very much for your very informative presentation. It was very much acceptable. I wondered do you have statistics to say how long people have to wait to get an ambulance? Is it when they phone, do they, is it instant? Some people complain having to wait a long time.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Campbell. So in relation to the waiting time, so we recognise that, there will be some patients where we can respond in very short time, and there will be others that may have an extended wait. Now, that extended wait could be for a number of reasons. It could be due to demand in the area, or it could be because we have triaged the call and it wouldn't necessarily require an immediate ambulance response, because the ambulance has to go to a higher priority call, so that individual may have to wait. However, where people do wait, then there is a process in place where we'll also then follow up on those patients to ensure that it's clinically safe. I do recognise, though, that there will be times where, those delays are experienced by patients. However, we do hope that we keep those to a minimum. And I think those figures of almost 8 and 9 minutes for immediate life-threatening calls across the Highland area, given that most of our area is remote and rural, we get to people fairly quickly at the sickest of the sick. But I do recognise that there is work that we continue to do to try and improve the experience for all patients alike.
And you work with the first responders. Do they relate to you how serious the patient is?
Yes, absolutely. So the Scottish Armed Services support community first responder schemes. So we provide the training and the ongoing support throughout. And once the community first responders been dispatched, they then have a link back to the ambulance control centre, either by telephone or by airwave radios that we use as well. And they can also access the integrated clinical hub where they can get that specialist advice remotely whilst the ambulance is responding as well. Now, within the committee's area, we have first responders based at Achilty, Torridon and Kyle. So we don't have them in many other areas. Now, there is two types of responders that we have. So we have what we call wildcat cardiac responders, and that's individuals who have undertaken a first aid course and are happy to sign up to be dispatched when a cardiac arrest call comes in. And that's about getting somebody there who can put hands on the chest, start CPR, and maybe do early defibrillation. And there's not, the commitment to that is a lot less than if they were to sign up for the community first responder scheme. So what we find with the community first responders is that's a 4-day course. There's a commitment to be available and also have carry equipment with you as well. And some people find that a bit challenging depending on their commitments. So we offer two options for communities, and we support the communities through that as well. And it's something we are looking at with our community resilience team about how do we increase those particularly cardiac responders for the cardiac arrest calls throughout the Western Ross area. And by increasing them, that would then lead to hopefully increasing the chance of survival when a cardiac arrest takes place.
So how do the members of the public know how to get a first responder? Do they phone for an ambulance and you relate to the first responders though?
That's correct, yes. So the public would dial 999, and then through our triaging, the dispatcher would then dispatch the local community first responder if that was appropriate for them to be dispatched. Also with the wildcat cardiac responders, that happens through an automated process using an app on a phone where it sends a signal to the phone and automatically alerts them to the cardiac arrest call and then gives them directions. So yeah, that all takes place within that immediate 999 call as it comes in.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions before I come in with mine? Not seeing any hands up. So actually, Councillor Campbell, you've a lot of my questions were around first responders as well. And I had a lot of questions, particularly the Western Ross, Scale, Torridon area. And one was the reassurance and whether you've got the statistics to reassure the communities that, you know, there was some concern that the ambulance service, the paramedics were living slightly further out with the area than was previous, and whether there's any indication they're looking for stats to evidence that that hasn't resulted in, you know, slower response times. And the other thing is just clarity around the first responders. And I think maybe what would be good for us to know is how do we feed back to our communities if they want to get involved, if they want to do the courses? Is there a contact that you have for them? And who is ultimately responsible for the kind of governance, for want of a better word, of the first responders? Thanks.
Oh, thank you. I've tried to note them down just as I don't forget. So yeah, so I'll talk about like you say, about the staff locations, so where staff reside. So particularly within the committee's area, outside of Dingwall, so Dingwall's got the ambulance station servicing the Strathpeffer and wider areas. However, over on the west coast, we don't actually have ambulance stations. The staff are based at home locations. So when we recruit staff in a remote and rural setting, we take a number of things into consideration about where staff can reside. And one of those is about how quick the staff can mobilise, but also how easy would it be to actually recruit and retain staff into these areas as well. So I do know that Gairloch had been a topic, I think, of conversation around where staff reside, and some of the staff have moved just slightly outside of the village. However, when we look at that, I think in that situation, they're still within 4 miles of each other. And speaking with the team, they don't believe that it's having any adverse effect on the response times in that area. It does become very difficult because when we try to look in relation to statistics, there's a lot of variability. So, where's the 99 calls coming in? Because the call could actually come in next to where the staff reside outside of the village, as well as when the calls come in the village also. But what we do look at is about how do we make a sustainable remote and rural service. And we recognise that, coming away from an urban area and cost of housing, the type of housing that maybe staff require, potentially for their own personal needs or health needs, and where they can actually locate their family is always a key factor. So we recognise that in a rural area, staff will live separately. That may result in a slightly extended response time from if they were based on an ambulance station together. The call volume in these areas, however, is usually very low. But it also means that we can ensure that there's a double crewed ambulance, because if we were to place lots of restrictions and people weren't able to reside in the area, then that could result in the ambulance being single crewed or unstaffed. So there is that kind of flexible approach, but looking to make sure that the community is not at any disadvantage in where staff do reside. And I'm pleased to say, actually, despite the large area we cover in Highland, in Wester Ross, we don't really have recruitment challenges of ambulance staff, which is very fortunate. And most of the staff that have left over recent months is actually due to retirement. It's not because they're seeking other employment or other jobs, or they're not happy living in the area. It's very much through retirement. And we have actually managed to attract a lot of staff from larger city stations to come out and live in likes of Gairloch, and also in Lochar, and people moving from more urban areas, because they want that sort of remote and rural experience of working within a community where they're actually putting something back into their community and feel that they're valued more than in urban areas. So we've been very, very fortunate in Wester Ross, which is a great place to be. Sorry, in relation to the CFRs, so on our external website, people can make inquiries about if they want to join as first responders. Also, I can make sure we send links to yourselves and members about how to share that with the communities. Our local ambulance teams regularly speak with community councils and community members, and they can share links and that also. And what we'll have a discussion with the community to see, well, is it a community first responder scheme they wish to establish, or is it the cardiac responders? But where they want to establish any of those schemes, the Scottish Ambulance Service will retain the clinical governance. And that's why we provide the training for community first responders, and also support them with the equipment that they require to maintain as well. And also when they attend, the Scottish Ambulance Service will maintain clinical responsibility for the patients and the care that they deliver. And I've got to say, they do deliver a high standard of care out in these communities, and it's usually in the first vital minutes as well, before the ambulance arrives. So hopefully that helps answer some of those questions, Councillor. Thanks.
That's great, thanks. And if we just have a contact for that to pass on to communities, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any more hands up. It's been really, really useful to have you along, because as you can imagine, it's a big topic. So that's just been really, really useful. Hopefully we can have you back for regular updates, and we'll feed everything back to our communities. And I should say that we as councillors at our last full council meeting all got an update on the DFib, and I didn't actually realise that in our council phones we have the app where you can press on it to find the nearest DFib. It was there, uploaded on my council phone, and I didn't even know it. So everybody needs to have that on their phone as well. So I'll just say thank you very much for coming along. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Michael.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've actually got, I think Margaret is there from housing, and it's actually quite nice because we had a little bit of a what do they call it on radio, a seamless carryover, because the issue of housing was mentioned. I don't know if you picked up on that, Margaret, in the previous presentation.
Yeah, I did.
Housing is just key to everything. So we'll hand over to you. Maybe you want to introduce yourself, because I think you're fairly new to your latest role. So I'll maybe let you introduce yourself and then carry on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
May I say before you do how good it is to see you in person, having had quite a lot of email correspondence with you. So
and likewise.
That's very, very nice, very good.
So as of December, I've been a principal housing officer in Caithness for a lot of years now, but as of December last year, I agreed to, as an interim measure, help with the Ward 5 and Ward 10 area as principal. So Skye, Highland, Lochalsh and Wester Ross. So that's why I'm here today. I had hoped that my colleague Colin Sharp, who's the Principal Repairs Manager for the North, would have been here to present the repairs data to you, but I think he's in the Dingwall Committee. So I will do my best on that part of the report. But it is lovely to see you all, and thank you for having me. You're asked to note the information provided on the Housing Performance Report for the period 1st of April 2023 till the end of March 2024. Initially, we look at repairs and emergency repairs. As you would expect, emergency repairs are a priority for the building maintenance teams, and their figures are well within the target of 12 hours. Non-emergency repairs, we have a more challenging picture. They're out with the target, largely due to spend controls because of reduced repairs budgets. Some repairs activities have been categorised as low priority and they're being delayed. That has an ongoing impact on the non-emergency repairs performance. However, the repairs teams continue to prioritise essential works while working through outstanding works orders for lower priority works. And we'll look to improve that performance over the course of 24-25. Tenancy management, which really is about void performance, I suppose, as far as the limitations of this report are concerned. Again, in Wester Ross, it's out with the target of 35 days. Properties in more remote areas, which were in low demand, had a disproportionate effect on performance. Rent arrears. I'm happy with where we ended the year, ended quarter 4. They're down from quarter 3. It's still a challenging environment. There is no question or doubt about that. But we continue to focus on early intervention. We do lots of signposting to welfare support teams and intensive support officers, CAB. And we're truly committed to supporting all our tenants who find themselves in arrears. Homelessness. Now, it's not possible to give you the figure just for Wester Ross. You'll see that at 8.2. Figures for Highland, 386, and across the area that this report looks at, 78. So fairly steady, really. There's no huge surprise there. It remains a very challenging area of our business. And that's essentially the report from Housing today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, have we got any questions? Councillor Burt.
Thank you for that report, Margaret. This issue of homelessness is a terribly serious one in terms of life and survival of the people concerned. What is the current policy for identifying and managing homeless people?
Everyone who chooses to present as homeless is entitled to a homeless presentation, and the teams embrace that every day. You're deemed in Scotland to be homeless if it's no longer reasonable to ask you to continue living there, or if your current accommodation is no longer available to you. Now, that can be for a wealth of reasons. And then a very, very standard process happens where the story is taken, the presentation is assessed, and we have several ways to go with that presentation. There will be a small minority of presentations who are found to have some intentionality, perhaps. Our advice to them and our signposting to them would be slightly different from those who are found to be unintentionally homeless. And we certainly have a duty to try to solve the homelessness in those cases. You're entitled to present as homeless now anywhere in Scotland. There has been a bit of a shift. If someone presented a year ago from another local authority in Scotland, if they met certain criteria, we could refer them back to the local authority in Scotland who had the duty. That duty now is Scotland-wide. So if somebody presents as homeless in Wester Ross, we will deal with them in Wester Ross. If they present in Caithness, we will deal with them in Caithness. If they present from England or Ireland or Wales, then there is the potential to look at referring them back to the English authority, for instance, that had the duty. But for Scottish homelessness, it's a different scene at the moment, and it won't change. That will be the state of play going forward. So every team in Highland have a house and options team, which consists of housing options officers who have a bit of a wide remit. Some are dedicated, depending on the area, some are dedicated homeless officers, some do allocations and also homelessness and housing options. But every team in Highland has those officers embedded within them.
And how about rough sleepers? Is there any attempt on a systematic way to identify them, to counsel them, and to try to help them?
We will always try to counsel and help, Councillor Burt. I'm working in Caithness, I'm working Wester Ross and Skye. Perhaps there are more active teams in Inverness who seek to help rough sleepers. We don't have an awful lot of rough sleepers in the areas that I have responsibility for. But rough sleepers come to our attention very, very quickly. Officers do go out and speak to them. We do listen to their story, and we offer all help and assistance that we can. And it would be up to that person if they choose to take that help. But they're not treated. They're not treated any differently from anybody else who might or might not find themselves in a homeless position.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Campbell. You're on mute. You have to unmute.
Good morning, Margaret. It's nice to see you. I've emailed you, but haven't met you. It's funny
nice to
corresponding
see you
with somebody that you've never met, But tell me, if people have housing problems like new kitchens, something for the house, is it you that we have to go to or property?
It is building maintenance. And Colin, my colleague, has joined us, and I'll maybe let Colin answer your question, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and thank you for holding the floor while I was attending to other things. Good morning, Councillor. Yeah, if people have defects to the property, they should just report it to the service centre. From the service centre, they have a wide variety of works orders they can raise immediately without discussion with a maintenance officer or any team from building maintenance. If it's something along the lines of the person would like a new kitchen, that would require a visit from a maintenance officer to first and foremost inspect the kitchen, check that it is beyond economic repair, And if it is, the options we have at that point is either to carry out a replacement as a one-off replacement, which is generally more expensive than the second option, which is to place onto a capital programme to have that kitchen replaced at a later date. Now, we wouldn't take any risks with any health and safety issues. So if there was a health and safety issue, it would be dealt with immediately. We wouldn't bother about that, it would just be done. We also, this is the difficulty because kitchens have a standard to meet. Now, we can go out and someone is looking for a new kitchen because their worktops are damaged. Well, we can replace the worktops because the remainder of the kitchen is in a reasonable condition. It may be that the drawer fronts or the door fronts are damaged. We can replace those, and again, it brings the kitchen back up into a serviceable standard. The difficulty is if the kitchen is an older kitchen, you may not get the door fronts matching or the drawer fronts matching, or you may end up with different sections of worktop. And again, that is aesthetics. It does not stop the use of the kitchen. So we are repairing where we possibly can, and if we can't, we would replace. So I hope that kind of answers your question. But each job is judged on its merits as to what is required to be done, and the decisions are made from there. But any repair, the tenant should just phone it straight to the service centre, and it'll either be dealt with there and then with a works order issued, or it'll be logged as a request for service and sent to the maintenance officer to pick up and carry out an inspection.
Thank you, Colin. And Margaret, do you work with housing associations? Because there's not that many council houses available nowadays. So the people building the houses seem to be the housing associations. And we've got a joint register, have we not?
Yes, we do. All the housing associations, the registered social landlords in Highland, are partners to the Highland Housing Register. So local teams do work closely with registered social landlords, which you will know as housing associations. So yes, we have a strong relationship with them.
What do you do with tenants? If the neighbours from hell, you might say, that's what they're called, and you have to evict them. Well, where do you put them then?
Well, we don't have to evict them. It's about working with them to try to understand where the pressures are. Sometimes we move people, sometimes people just don't get on. But I think what would be useful would be out with committee if we had a wee team session, and I'd be happy to speak to you about antisocial behaviour and the tools that are available to us. Is that of interest to you?
Yeah, that would be, yes, thank you.
Yep, good, okay, Willie will help me set that up.
Thank you. Thanks, Margaret.
Thanks. Yeah, that would be really useful, Margaret. Appreciate that.
Any aspect of housing we could discuss at that kind of point.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I'm not seeing any other hands up for no more questions. So in that case, are we happy to note the recommendations and the information provided in that report, members?
Noted.
Noted. Okay, thank you very much, Margaret, and thank all your team for all the work that you do.
I will do. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
So I think, just let me get my agenda back. Oops, I've just lost it. The last point is just the ward discretionary applications for the last year that are on the, this is just for noting. These are ones that we have passed. Are we happy to note them?
Yes.
Yep. Yep. They're all there on the agenda. I won't read through them. There's quite a list, but they're all ones that we passed in the last year for last year's budget. So happy to note, members?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I don't think there's any other business.
But is there no other any other business?
Well, we can have any other business. Have you got? I'm just
getting
I need to know the minutes as well, Chair.
Committee,
Pardon, sorry, just 1 minute. I think, were you coming in, Olala?
Sorry, we need to note the minutes from last meeting.
Oh, sorry, that wasn't. Yep, the minutes from the previous meeting.
Noted.
Happy to note. Yeah,
noted.
Thanks, Olaya. Thank you. If I've missed anything else, let me know, because I have been having trouble here with my other screen. But I think that's
No, the business is complete, Chair.
That's the business complete. Okay, what was it you wanted to raise, Councillor Campbell?
Car park funding.
So I think we're going to look at that next week at the business meeting.
And also the regeneration grants were given for the last year.
Yeah, so we'll have a look at that. That'll come up at our next, well, I think we've got our next business meeting next week, so that we'll have a look at that then.
Which date is it?
I think, I can't go into my calendar because I'll lose you all. It is next week, isn't it? It's next Monday. Yeah.
27th.
It's next Monday, yeah.
Oh,
so
well,
we
fine.
can, yeah.
In that case, my apologies. My apologies. It's next Monday.
Okay, that we will note that, Councillor Burt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
in that case, I think that's the end of the meeting. No more business. Okay. Thank you all for attending.